What's going on, everybody? Super excited to be back here with you, back in the friendly confines of the Lumberjack Landlord lair, but with people that just want to talk about real estate. So let's talk about some real estate. But kidding, of course, I digress. Spent last Thursday night, believe it or not, I hope to God you guys didn't stay on for the whole thing. It was absolute pandemonium. We started at a little after 9 o'clock, maybe 9:15, and then we went to then we went to like 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning. Really super super long show. But Sarah from the Raging Tomato, it was an absolutely awesome time. I really enjoyed it. Sarah is absolutely amazing. There's a reason why they pay her the big bucks, and if they don't, whoever they is should pay her the big bucks. She's absolutely fantastic at being a moderator. She did a really good job of kind of keeping flow. You really get the sense that she actually wants to, understand all the points, which is pretty awesome. She saves the shut the hell ups for, when they're needed. Honestly, it was a lot of fun, doing it. There's people there. I kind of explained it to Zub and to Dion, when I was talking with them off camera. And I said, when we were doing our recordings yesterday, I said, what's really interesting is I said, a third of the people I think supported, and a third of the people were interested, and then a third of the people just instantly hated me or started off hating me, not knowing me. And what I think happened is I think the third stuck with me. The other middle third kind of sided with me because they understand that it's just logic. It's just common sense. And then I think even some of the people that had these predisposed notions came over to our side of the fence as well, just understanding how Section 8 works, how it works as a program. One of the things that's really, really interesting is, how you have the soy boy of the day, Ryan, and then this other clown named Silver something or other, who said that I knew him. I don't know who he is. He's like, oh, we've gotten into it before. Dude, I get into it with everybody. Like, you're not special. You don't have a particularly fantastically stupid point of view any more than other people that have a fantastically stupid point of view that I argue with. Silver Eagle, thank you. I don't know who he is. But he continued to claim that he knew who he was. He paid to get on stage, basically. And in doing so, couldn't put together a coherent thought. So I know that he was a particular favorite of the host because people kept on paying to put him backstage because they couldn't listen to his inane, absurd, and useless ramblings. But what was really interesting was just I come away sadly more dug in and more convinced than ever. And that's why the title today. They have very educated people on those panels in some cases. And so these people are super ultra educated. Ryan's super educated. He's Mr. Coder Boy. What's really funny is I've had coders work for me making product for decades. And I can tell you, I would fire his stupid ass in a millisecond because he's beyond arrogant. And I don't care how good he is. He's absolutely what we call a TO, a team obliterator. Completely self-absorbed. Everything is about being right. Everything is about, making sure you understand where he's coming from. I don't care. I don't care where you're coming from. You're here to code. Shut up. We're here working together as a team. No one part more important than the other. And so we're all working together as a team to get a job done. And we're not going to talk to have you voice your feelings, soy boy. And so that was really the challenge in having conversation with him. It was, well, I read it on the internet. That means it's true. Like this guy, if he read it on the internet, like I'm sure he believes all the top things. I'm sure, during the health crisis of 20 and 21, I'm sure he was just reading everything up and just yelling at everybody that didn't agree with what the government propaganda was that was coming out. Right. And so what's really funny is people like that get very stuck. They get very in themselves. They get very in their heads. Guys, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the Lumberjack Landlord. I've got 153 units, I think. I've got 53 buildings, I believe. It's coming up and down. We're selling some and buying some and things like that. What I find most interesting is I accomplish things. I do things. And so the thing that I've always learned was that I would get in the trenches and I would see the problem. I would ask a million questions. I would try and learn. I'd try and understand. And I wasn't going out and doing research and then bringing it back and just finding something on the web with no research, just Googling it. I Googled it. Don't you get it? I Googled it. And therefore that's my counter argument to what you're saying, because I believe that's a reliable source. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time doing that. The people that are really successful, quite frankly, at anything are the ones who jump in. They aren't afraid to get dirty. They're elbows and knees deep. They're asking people that have done something before what they've tried to do or what they're trying to do. They're around those people trying to learn those skills. That's why I so appreciate this community. You know, you've got, Dion's folks and Mike's folks and my folks and Millennial Mike's folks. And all of these people converge to make this amazing community, and all the other millionaires too. But they all converge to make this unbelievable community of people that want to learn, pursuing knowledge, but actually pursuing knowledge, not so they can go, oh yeah, you're wrong. Oh yeah, I Googled it over here. You're wrong. Dude, I've lived it. These people value the internet far more than they value experience. I can sit there and I can say, hey, this is how Section 8 housing voucher program works. And they're sitting there arguing, going, no, it's not. No, it's not. Based on what? Based on what? You don't know what you're talking about. I have experience. So it was really interesting, right? That they want to stake claim on authority and knowing that it's right because they read it on the internet. What a bunch of fools. And the other piece I think is really interesting as well. Give me just 1 second, guys. I just want to make sure. Okay. The other thing that's really interesting that I saw was, the soy boy getting all wrapped around the axle and somebody going, you have to admit. I don't have to admit anything. Number one. Number two is, why do I care? Like Silver, whatever his name, wants to get all wrapped around the axle about Trump tariffs. Guys, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, whether you believe in tariffs or don't believe in tariffs, is that affecting your current minute right now in the work that you're doing to accomplish the goal? These guys make way too much noise about all this blah, 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 blah in the ether. It doesn't matter. I asked him, and here was a very pointed question I asked Soy Boy, and I'm pretty sure that most of you didn't see it, but I said to him, what have you done? I've done lots. No. What have you done? I've written lots of code. And what have you done in this social endeavor where all of us are wrong and you're the smart one and you figured it out and we're all idiots? What have you done? What have you gotten done? Well, I teach people. Dude, useless. Absolutely useless. Teach people. Come on. Really? I teach people all the time. But they actually take those practical skills, put them to work, put effort behind them, continue to expand their knowledge outside of just me, making them better investors, and they're actually taking action and doing something. They're buying a property. They're fixing a property. What I'm most proud about this community is that you guys actually do. You listen, but you do what you're learning. You recognize that no one's perfect. You recognize that every situation is going to have some angles to it where it's like, I wish I could have done that differently. I should have changed that up differently. I could have made this change. What's really crazy is that he thinks that he's not replaceable. He's very replaceable by far more talented people. And even if they weren't more talented, they're better team players. And anybody that's ever developed on a team recognizes the most important thing that you need is not some douche soy boy who needs to make sure his opinion's heard. What you actually need is a guy that says, hey, listen, we're all here for a common goal. We got to try and get this done. What part can I play to make sure to help deliver the best of what I can deliver to make sure that we as a team get to where we're going to? Right. And that's leadership in me that he'll never understand. And that's okay, because he's going to be just as angry in his early 30s and even more angry in his mid 30s. And then as he gets older, he'll just continue to be angry at all these other things around them. Anger at that level is a completely wasted emotion. It's useless. It doesn't do you any good. Use it to fuel. Use it for fuel. But that's when somebody specifically says something to you. You can't do that. Hey, as a ninth grade dropout, I get it. I got told no a lot. And you know what? I'm wealthier than all of those people. Now, is that a little bit of receipts? Yeah, it is a little bit of receipts. It kind of feels good to say that because I was told I was wrong a lot, but I just kept on working. I just kept on asking questions. I would fight through problems. I'd make problems, but I'd fix them. And then what ends up happening is you actually end up making that muscle really, really strong. I'm identifying problem and I fix it. I identify the problem and I fix it. I never spent any time wasting away like so many people do with all of these things that they cannot control one iota. They can't control them one bit. They just can't. So what you have to understand is, largely speaking, we live in a system, right? And so do you want to understand the system so you can best leverage and make the best moves you possibly can to get ahead in that system? Yeah, kind of, right? Like, otherwise, why don't, if you want to live off grid and do that thing, yeah, of course, by all means, go do that. But if you want to be in the system, like the monetary system and having a job and paying your bills and all of that other stuff, needing credit, if you want to do that, then you have to understand what the game is. And then once you understand what the game is, you can then execute. But most importantly, you don't wait until you understand the entire game to start executing. You just start with momentum and you create momentum and you just keep on going. You're going to make mistakes. You're absolutely going to make mistakes. The idea is that's why I come on here and quite frankly, give my time, 90 minutes a week and often in emails when I can get back to them. But I spend that time because my goal is to help you guys avoid some of the big mistakes that I made. That's why I made the course. The course is 9.5 hours of here's all the things that I've learned over the last 20 years. I'm shocked that more people don't take my course with how inexpensive it is. It's less than $1,000. I know it will save you more than $1,000, likely in weeks. Likely in weeks. Ask any of the people that are in the chat, ask them how fast they saved their $1,000. The reason I make it $1,000 is because I want to make sure that you guys are invested in it, that you actually take the time to take the course. If you spend a couple of $100, you're probably not going to take the course. You're probably going to be like, oh yeah, I got to get back to it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you spend $1,000, you're going to invest that time. Now it's all there on demand. You can watch the videos at your own pace. You get to be part of the community and listen to all the things that they get to talk about and all the lessons that they've learned. But most importantly is, what is this? If I could pay $1,000 and know that I'm going to avoid potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistake, but at least tens of thousands of dollars in mistakes, sign me up for that $1,000 every single time. I always want to make someone else's lessons and their mistakes and their bill for those mistakes. I always want to make that somebody else's. That way I can learn from it and I don't have to repeat it. So I made mistakes in my investing career, but remedied those. And now, as you guys see, I don't get stumped on questions a whole lot. If I do, I certainly try and find a way to ask it. But I think what's really interesting is that there's people like that would spend a ton of money going to college, getting this degree and that degree, even getting a master's. And they'll spend 6 and 7 years in college and they'll do all that. But once they get out, they know everything. They don't need to take any specialized courses to make them that much better at what they are. That's one of the things I really enjoy about the trade schools. The trade schools is practical application of what you're learning in the classroom every single day. Now, we can have an argument over whether or not you need 5 years of apprenticeship before you can get a license. I think that's excessive, quite frankly speaking. However, trade schools are far stronger. They're producing far better, far more equipped people to doing said tasks and jobs. If you went to college, it doesn't make you an idiot. And certainly if I have an engineer designing a bridge, or if I have a doctor, or if I have an attorney, yeah, I'd like it if they went to college. But largely speaking, you find a lot of people that actually did all of this work. And how many of them are actually using their degree? How many of them didn't even finish and get their degree? So I think that translates into largely one of the biggest lies we get told is that you have to have an education to be successful. Largely speaking, that's wrong. What really you need is an understanding of how things work and what you're going to do and then how you're going to fix them. I find that all of this hubbub that they talk about at college, where they're turning people into practical thinkers and bullshit, they're not. They're not. They're the biggest bunch of drone idiots coming out of college I've ever seen. It's kind of a punchline. It's kind of a joke. We see, and they aren't willing to do any actual labor. And they think that they should make 6 figures out of the gate. They think they should start off in the corner office. I'm seeing that trend change. In the last few years, it was really bad, but I'm seeing this current trend actually get a whole lot better. People are getting a whole lot better at saying, yeah, like I don't expect to start at the top. I know that I have a lot to learn, but teach me. And I love that sponge thing, right? I want to pump them up as much as I can, give them as much data, information, and knowledge as much as I can. So from that perspective, it's actually really kind of cool. So again, what I would say is leaving it at this is my time on the Raging Tomato was an absolute blast. I had a lot of fun. Got to meet some really cool people. A lot of people want to do collaborations with me down the line, and I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to it because they're actually in pursuit of knowledge and recognize that they don't know anything about a certain subject and that they're having a domain expert actually talk to them about it. But sadly, there will be two people that will remain forever lost. Getting angry at the television, getting angry at their computer, hammering out more code won't make any difference. And very quickly, that person's going to be changed out by a team worker, and they're not going to have a job because AI can program a lot cleaner and a lot faster than they can. And they think that they're going to be in charge of the AI. And that's kind of funny because I actually know more about AI than he ever will because I actually sold it for years. So, but we don't talk a whole lot about that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that Raging Tomato. Love to hear your comments on that. Love to get your feedback on how you think those sessions went. It was, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was interesting to say the least. So, I'm interested to see how this, how, I don't know, kind of how we go from here. But it was amazing being the guest on that show. Sarah was absolutely spectacular. Amazing. So many of the guests were fantastic. And quite frankly, the other two just proved to you why they won't ever really be anything. Because they need to make it about something that it's not. Don't waste your time in the noise. Get down to it. Understand what's that next step? What's the next thing that I need to do to get better at this, to evolve in this concept, and in this path that I've taken. Stay focused on that. When you focus on only those things that pertain and matter to the task at hand, you'll actually accomplish the task. You'll accomplish it faster. You'll accomplish it better. More importantly than most others, you'll actually accomplish it. So let's jump into it and, answer some of your questions. Wayne Wong, good to see you, sir. Hey, Dion, good to see you, pal. Always good to hang out with Dion on my Wednesdays with Mike. And now Mike and Dion are going to be gone next week. And so I'm just going to hang out by my lonesome, but I'll still do my show. And, seeing as how I'm sure there's going to be some gaps there, we certainly will help out. Let's see. Hey, Wealth Building Journey. Chester was a machine there. He was actually bringing up great questions. You guys, that's something else I forgot. And I really apologize. Thank you so much for all the support. Your support was absolutely fantastic. It was a blast to see your comments in there. You guys were spot on. Like, you guys were just crushing it with your questions and with your comments. And it was just making these people just look silly. Like, at the end of the day, you guys have all accomplished more than Soy Boy's ever going to accomplish. And even though Silver Eagle might have a few rentals, he's still too busy yelling at his TV screen and hammering away on the keyboard about how much he hates Donald Trump. Who cares, dude? It doesn't matter. Did I like Joe Biden in office? No, I thought he sucked. I thought he was a total clown. I thought he basically screwed everything up. However, that being said, here's what I can tell you. It didn't make a difference to me on a day-to-day basis because I just figured out a way to maneuver around him. State politics are far more important. Local politics are far more important. And that's what I'd rather understand. So I don't let those other things affect me. I don't want to get wrapped around the axle and spend a bunch of time arguing those points because, quite frankly, I don't care. Tariffs, not tariffs. You know what I can tell right now on my job? That the tariffs are costing me 20% more on spray foam. Yeah, I don't like it, but hey, it is what it is. And I want to give the guy in charge some time to figure things out with getting a better deal for us. And I recognize that sometimes that means I'm going to have to take my own lumps. Okay, way it goes. So what? Is what it is. On to the next, on to the next. We're going to get the next thing done. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Annie K, good to see you. Angel, good to see you as well. BuzzTune, great to see you guys. Mark Hambone, what's good? Oh, hey, Mark, good to see you. 6 hours and 36 minutes. Yeah, it was a long time. I was tired. It was really funny. I went upstairs. I like my baseball cards. And so I played with my baseball cards for a little bit, doing some sorting, doing some review stuff. But like I said, had a blast on the show. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was just one of those things that's kind of a head scratcher where, I had so much fun and I was kind of like, going through all the stuff that we talked about, go upstairs, play with my baseball cards. And I think I finally went to bed at maybe like 3:30 in the morning. It was a long night or a long night on the show. And it was morning came fast. 6:30 in the morning with my son, came early, but it was good. I had a lot of fun. Ryan, hello, Lumberjack crew. Hey, Josh, good to see you. Mark Campbell. Ryan was killing me. Dude loves to hear the sound of his own whiny voice. He is. That's why I call him a soy boy, because he didn't really add any value. He doesn't really add any value in life either. He thinks he does, but he doesn't. He's because here's one of the things I can tell you when it comes to like landlording as an example. So I've made products with banks, so I've affected change. I've worked with city and attorneys and made legislation. I've worked with representative groups and helped them get legislation approved. I've helped them get legislation blocked. So I'm actually a part of the solution. And to him, I'm probably part of the problem, but I don't have to worry about him because he's useless. He's inept. He's impotent. He doesn't know what the first thing is to do to actually do something and actually affect change. He's just going to sit there on some TV show and argue about it. And that's fine. Argue away. It doesn't really make a difference to me. But I actually have gotten things done. And, I haven't written a line. Actually, I've written probably a few lines of code in my life. I've not written nearly as much code as he has. But all the developers who worked for me have written hundreds of millions of lines of code. So I guess there's that. So I guess if you can't do it, lead the people that do. Sean Lambert, good evening. Good evening, sir. Good to see you. Kyle Dorn, hello all. Good to have you. And half were left leaning. Yeah, I think they were pretty hard left leaning. And again, I have friends that are liberals, and it's kind of funny because we'll have a conversation about certain things. And I know that, nothing is going to differ or change, or no one's going to feel different about the situation. And that's fine. And so if they want to hear my perspective on something, but what's interesting is that I would never sit there and tell Ryan how to code something. I wouldn't, because I'm not a coder. But he was telling me how I don't understand how it works. And Section 8, that's not how it is. That just makes you an idiot. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer, but I'm going to give you an answer based on experience, not what you can Google. And FYI, when you send your resume in, you shouldn't put on there, I know how to Google stuff. Typically, you want to put on there what your experience is, what your CV is, the amount of success that you've had delivering those things. That's typically what guys like me who hire people, that's what we care about. But maybe he'll put that together someday. Probably all too late. Kyle Dorn, good to see you, sir. Jason Calasabetta, good evening, Matt and everyone. Good evening. Yes, thank you for naming him. Robert Fernelli, hello, sir. Thank you for your support. Appreciate it. Those soy boy got moist in the presence of an alpha male. Yeah, and the funny thing is I'm probably not so much an alpha male as I am probably a sigma male, in all honesty. I kind of like doing my own thing and often don't play well with others. But it is what it is. Recognize my weaknesses. Recognize that if I've come up with an opinion, it's a really grounded opinion based on a lot of data. And research that I've done and talking to other people, and they're like, oh, it's all anecdotal. No, it's called experience. It's called experience. Yeah, that's what they call it, where the big boys live. Oscar, good evening. Good evening, Oscar. Hey, old REI guy. Good to see you. Robert Fernelli, yes, Silver Eagle is one of your live streams before spouting stupidity. I was in the chat telling him stop being a little bitch and get in the panel. He got a beating. Yeah, he got an absolute drubbing. Like, I'm surprised if he's not in intensive care still from the beating that he took. But what was also, I thought, kind of also, what I also thought was funny about it was I just don't remember him. Like, if people in the comments come at me, I give them some snarky answer back that's accurate. And they probably get all butthurt about it. And that's okay. Hey, Josic Pixac, welcome. Hi, everyone. Mark Hamlin, I love how they tried to keep dogging on you for arguing from authority. Yeah, I know. While presenting arguments from authority that they found on the internet. Exactly. Yeah, you don't understand. I read it here once. You don't understand. We don't care. You don't understand. I've experienced it. I've done it. He's never run a development team. I have. Silly boy. Kyle Dorn, man, I tried to stay supportive of you last week being there, but I couldn't make it all the way through. Dude, you're good. Glad to see you didn't go to jail. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I enjoyed the time on there, and I liked having the conversations that we did. I'm not going to change Ryan's mind about anything, but more importantly, he's not going to change mine because I've actually experienced it. right? So I'm making decisions based on experience and facts. He's making them on feelings and something he Googled on the internet. And you know what? I'll take experience and facts any day of the week. Experience and facts for 1,000, Alex. Good evening, Jen. Good to see you. LOL. Valuing the internet versus experience. Good evening, all. Yes, I know, right? It's just brilliance. For obvious reasons, guys. There's an obvious reason we don't value what we find on the internet. Hold on a second. Somebody working late. I just want to thank them. That's how you do it, guys. Right? Treat people like people, unless they've proven that they're not people. Oh, come on. Wrong button. Wrong button. Wrong button. Here we go. There we go. Now we're right button. Ah, crap. Wrong button again. That's right. Now I got it. Now we're good. Now we're good, I think. Yes. So, yeah. So enjoy the time. Josh Burdick, Greater Aura community is bomb diggity. I agree. I remember that question. He had no substantive answer. Yeah. I mean, he had no substantive answer. Silver Eagle just proved that he should never, ever, ever have a conversation online with anybody. He should probably stick to chat groups that think the way he thinks, because if that's the guy that you're sending over to convince us, bye. Bye-bye. I've written more code than him probably. Yeah, and done things better myself. It's not hard. That's true. I think the other thing is, he's very young. He's just very young and inexperienced. And so, sadly, he's all piss and vinegar and nothing else. Thanks for putting in the course link. Mark Hambo, and anyone who is looking for things for your rentals, Amazon has some Father's Day sales going on right now. Cool. Got 3 electronic deadbolts for $87 each and 6-pack of doorknobs for $40. Thanks, Mark. Always good to help out the community. Josh Burdick, Book Smarts is only as great as it's applied in the real world. Yep, grit can take you further if you just get after it. That's very true. Very rare in every single room I've ever been in. Every single person was more educated than I was, without exception. I never, ever, ever worked with anybody that was an 8th grade dropout. Everybody that I worked with was sometimes I ran into a couple high school dropouts, but for the most part, they were college dropouts or they went to college or whatever. But I was the least educated person in every single room. Now, going into it, I know this. And so what do I have to do? I'm out there asking a bunch of questions and being very humble in my approach. Because when I would go in and they would say, hey, so we need to try and fix this, I would say, great. They're like, so, all right, what do you think we should do? I was like, guys, we got to ask a million questions first so we can diagnose. And then once we have asked those million questions and we can diagnose, then we can prescribe. People very often miss that diagnostic step, and that's the most important one. And the only way that you can get that diagnosis is by asking people that are in the process, what's wrong here? Where are we struggling? What are the problems that we're having? And, then you can better understand, hey, this is what I need to address in order to fix the problems. That's why I was really good at what I did. So, Corby Carter, evening misfits. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Kyle Dorn. Yeah. One guy was laughing when he heard you were a dropout. Would love to see his face the next morning driving to work and watching the fuel pump never stop. Yeah. With his sweaty palms, it's one of those things where you guys know that, like, obviously, like, this channel is not about the flex. Like, there's no pictures of my house. There's no pictures of all of my properties every single time you see my smiling face. Like, it just is what it is. It's fine. I want to say those things to encourage you. But I also want to make sure that you understand that Rome wasn't built in a day and that it was built over a 20-year period. And it was just one good decision after another. And you make a bad decision and you recoup from that and you learn from that and you then do the next one. So do you know what happened to go from 5 to 50? Number 6, and then number 7, and then number 8. So I remember every single one of those steps. And I remember having to move into them, and I remember having to find them, and I remember having to work until midnight and 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning trying to fix things and learn how to fix things on my own. I remember all that stuff. And so I'm right there with you guys. I completely understand where you're at. The first 5 years, they do suck, but then they really start to pay off, and they really start to pay off nicely. Let's see. Yeah. And people laughing that I'm a 9th grade dropout. Like, okay, I can't fix it. I'm certainly not. Do you realize that I've actually been offered an honorary degree? I won't take it because I won't cheapen what I've been through. People earned that. I'm not going to cheapen that for them either. What, I'm going to get it because I'm successful and wealthy? I'm not interested. That's not how I do things. I'm not interested. I'm a ninth grade dropout. Is what it is. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Go follow Soy Boy. You aren't wrong. Entry and mid-level developers are cooked. Yeah, exactly. And this I know. And Farinelli, you know it too. You're a developer. You're seasoned. You've been around for a real long time. I can do all of these different things, but I understand the bigger picture of how they're all connected together. That means I add more value to any organization that I'm with. And so soy boys like him, like they're in trouble. That's not going to go well for him. AI is already writing code better than veteran developers. It's true. And we're only at artificial narrow intelligence, not even artificial general intelligence. That's also true. I worked with AI. I worked with products that were, I worked through the pre-steps to AI, which is what's called RPA, robotic process automation. And that was actually the following through of processes. What ends up happening is AI then starts being able to make decisions based on what that process did, the data that it then unearthed, and then it understands based on this data, this is what the next step needs to be. So think of it as decision tree logic. It builds out a decision tree and says, this is what you're supposed to do. But now what AI does is instead of asking or prompting a human, hey, based on this, what would you like me to do? It says, well, based on all the data that I have and all the analytics that have ever been, and all the data that's ever been loaded in my system ever over the history of time, this is what the likelihood is of this if we do this, and this is what the likelihood is if we do this. And so we should do the one that has the better outcome. That's how it kind of works in healthcare. So for those of you who don't know, that's generally speaking the difference between RPA and AI and why AI continues to take off. You did great on the tomato. The loonies on there are a lost cause. I agree. What I try and do is I think that there's that third that's already with me. There's the third that, hates me just because I'm a landlord. And then there's a third in the middle that are, generally, they're not really sure which side they're on because they haven't heard a cogent argument before, and they haven't heard a cogent case put before them before. So I think what's really cool about that is I want to give those folks the opportunity to hear a cogent case, ask their questions. I don't control the outcome. I only control by sharing the data and the experience so they understand exactly what the program is. As you saw, Sarah was completely blown away with the fact that Section 8 doesn't fix the unit when the tenant blows it up. She's like, that's so wrong. I was like, tell me about it. Try being the landlord having to pay all the money to fix that stuff. Master Coach University. Robert Farinelli. AI writes better code than most at this point, though it's still it still allows you design or architect. That's very true. And that's what will get better over time, right? Powerful property solutions with Jen Stewart. Sigmas for the win. Appreciate that, Jen. And Jen knows, she was a woman, went out on business, did her own thing. For those of you who don't know, she's an important part of what I do in my business. She's she owns a VA company. She also does lending, but her main focus is VAs and running VA teams. And so when we needed a boost, she was that boost for us. She's been that boost for a number of people in the audience as well that have hired her team to help them find deals. And that's a great thing because when you're going into a season like we are, where there's this level of transition, you don't want to depend only on the MLS. You want to depend on as many different ways of getting deals as possible. Ask Kyle Dorn. Ask Kyle Dorn how many deals. I actually got 2 quasi leads in eviction court on Thursday. What day is today? On Tuesday when I went, I got 2 quasi leads. It was kind of cool. So if I can do that in eviction court, there's all these other areas you can do it in. And quite frankly, that's where you're going to find some of your best deals, not on MLS. You wonder why stuff on MLS doesn't pencil? There's a reason. Everybody else is after it. Sean Lambert. Hey, Matt, have you ever received a loan or grant from Urban Renewal? I haven't. I'm not sure if you did with the project in jail. If so, how did it go? So I didn't get any, I didn't get anything, Sean. I think from an Urban Renewal perspective, I want to say, and I'm not positive, but I believe that there's a criteria for for how large it needs to be, how large the city needs to be. So there were a couple things that I was able to do. There was one thing which was going through the process of getting a tax abatement. That was one thing in the opportunity zone. And then the other thing is, and we're still in process of doing it, is the energy audit thing. Where we're trying to bring it up to a certain level so we get, energy credits. Or reimbursement for the stuff that we're doing for efficiency. So nothing specific to Urban Renewal, no special loan, none of that stuff. Just closed number 5 yesterday. Empty lot. Thinking of building small 2-2. Love that. Charles McCoon, one of the things that you should probably look into is not actually building sticks, but actually finding out if the area allows for essentially a modular home to be dropped. You don't want a mobile home. I'm talking a modular, and the difference is that a mobile's on wheels and a modular is dropped off in pieces and assembled on a pad. Excuse me, but you might want to look into that just because it will save you a significant amount of money over stick build, unless you're doing a bunch of the work yourself. Kyle Dorn, 11th grade dropout over here. Taylor is a 7th grade dropout. Taylor, good job. But that makes sense. But seriously, good job, Taylor. So Taylor and Kyle are the team. Taylor does a lot of the infield work and Kyle does a lot of the deal creation. Great, fantastic team that works well together. But you kind of see it's, they didn't make excuses. Kyle dropped out of high school, figured it out, owns a trucking company, now owns a bunch of rentals, is going to continue to grow that business. And quite frankly, makes more than most college graduates. And that's pretty cool. And one of the things that a lot of people forget is I feel it's kind of a disservice to kids because, at 18 years old, they're being asked to make the biggest decision in their lives that's going to have the most debt and likely will be debt that they'll pay off for 20 years. It will keep them from doing a lot of things for the first 10 years of their time outside of college. So the advantage that I had was I started at 18 or I started at 16 with no money, and figured out a ways to make money and then finally made it into the software business. And I was 19 years old. And then I started making money, but all of my friends were in college spending money. So then they get out of college at 22 or 24. They have $250,000 in debt. I have zero debt, but I've been doing nothing but making money for the last 4 or 5 years. So that puts me so far ahead of them. Now, when do they actually maybe catch up? 45. I retired at 46. So whoops. So that's kind of how it goes. Now, that's not to say college people are stupid. That's not the point at all. The idea is that as we look at our kids, because that's the position that I'm in now, as I talk to my children, I want to make sure that they do what's best for them. But they recognize that, and we have this conversation often, which is you have to be able to provide value. You have to be able to provide value. And so if you're going to go to college and get a degree like this, and this person in our family, then you have to make sure that that degree is going to help you help others and something that's valuable, whether it's financial or something that's valuable, whether it's societal. So yeah, we actually have that conversation and he's 7. That's Sam. Do you think Tesla's Cybercab will destroy Uber? I'm interested to see. I think that I rarely think that there's only one dominant force. For Walmart, you have Target. For Home Depot, you have Lowe's. So do I think it will destroy it? I don't know. I don't think so. Do I think it'll make a dent in their business? Yeah, of course. Like it is direct competition. So yeah, I think it will compete, but I don't think it will destroy. I closed one Tuesday, next one on the 23rd. That is awesome. Not too fast. One of the things that is very, very important is to make sure that you're maintaining the proper level of speed. I get it. It's fun to put together deals, but you need to make sure that something is ready, that it's on market, and that you're not too overly exposed, when you're actually doing these deals. So I appreciate the fact that you're winning. Love that you're winning. Love that you're sharing that you're winning, but please make sure speed kills. And that was one of the things that almost pushed me to bankruptcy was the speed by which I grew in the beginning. If I had it to do over again, I would have had many fewer losses had I grown slower. Charles McCune, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Kyle Dorn, Chester. How's my man Brian doing for you? Oh, cool. You guys are connecting. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Different, property managers. I love it. Robert Finley, real question. I don't need a variance for my duplex to triplex conversion. Triplexes are allowed by special exemption. However, my building is non-conforming to many zoning rules. I have to fill out a form of how it adds value and doesn't detract from neighbors. We already talked about what to rate here. Yep, to win, but any difference in approaching a special exception versus a variance? No, not necessarily. What you have to make sure that the goal remains the same. Is how is this better for the community? How is this better? The idea is that, I would honestly, I would go through a lot of iterations with Chat GPT. Excuse me. I would go through lots of iterations with Chat GPT. And then, wordsmith what you get out of that. I play with Chat GPT sometimes. Sometimes I like the things it gives me, and other times I hate the things it gives me. Other times I'm just like, this sucks. And so, but sometimes, it's like, oh, actually, that's not half bad. That's actually pretty good. So that's kind of the process that I go through. But yeah, I think the main thing is, what's most important to the town. And that's where you can't find it on the internet, right? I'm having conversations with the council members and I talk to the one in my zone and just say, what's the most important thing? Like, I get that it's not solely our responsibility. I get that it's not solely our responsibility to give me just 1 second here, guys. I know that it's not solely our responsibility to fix the affordable housing crisis. However, if everybody takes that view, then nothing is ever going to get done. So if we can do this with minimal impact, I believe that adding a 2-bedroom unit there is going to be of minimal impact. If I added a 4, or if I just expand that up and I make the units that are there bigger, that's going to be more of a stress on the community because it's that many more services that are needed. What we need to do is bring in people in their 20s and in their 30s that are actually spending money, going downtown, using the services. That's the stuff that we want, but it's not services that are paid by taxes. It's actually how we create revenue. And having all the local shops thriving and such, like that's what's most important. So I think that that's the approach that you want to take. But the most valuable thing is you have a council member for a reason. Like you have somebody that represents your ward. I would call them and just have the conversation and say, I want to do something that's, what's best for the community. What are the things that happen most often? Where do you think that value can add? I believe that there's value in doing it this way. But I'd like to understand your thoughts on the matter. Because there's nothing better than getting up in front of the council and having somebody say, yeah, actually, he called me and he asked me. And we had a long, good conversation. And this was the input that I gave him. And so I think that he's doing exactly the right thing. And so that's just the way that I would do it. And I think that that's going to get you your win the fastest. Hey, Gem Tam, good to see you. I might also need variance on the items I am not conforming on. Still gathering intel for FX. Yep. Trying to figure out the mood of the town, watching previous ZBA meetings. I mean, when you hire FX, and so he's a local attorney that I use for some of this stuff. He actually will engage and have those conversations with folks and try to understand. And that's kind of the key. Put yourself in the councilman's shoes. If you're asking he or she councilman, asking these questions, trying to understand these things, you're going to understand going into it. Are they for you or are they against you? And you at least get the credit for reaching out, having the conversation and trying to add value. That's the way that I look at things. Is I treat them like they're people and I treat them like how I would want to be treated. And yeah, if I see something outrageously stupid, I expect to get absolutely slammed for it. I don't know why others don't expect that. Chris Culp. Hi, Matt. Nice job last week. Spicy. Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, it was a lot less cursing than I expected, in all honesty. I think for the first 2.5 or 3 hours, there was no yelling until Idiot Boy showed up. That's good. Kyle Dorn. Oh, sorry. Samuel. Won on that bid the other day. Congratulations. Closing in 2 weeks. I love that. Samuel, another member of the Lumberjack Landlord course and the boot camp, just graduated the boot camp and now he's kicking ass and doing major awesome things. Now the big fear, how do I know I am vetting potential tenants correctly? Just a fear I have that I won't key in on red flags. So first, watch the ad. Watch the ad. Watch the part in the course where we talk about tenants, and how to qualify them, how you're posting your ads. Watch that stuff over and over and over again. The key is credit score. If they don't pay their bills, they're not going to pay you and your bill. So credit score is king. It just is. Then income. And then making sure you're understanding. These are the 3 things we teach in the course. Here's a freebie, everybody. Making sure that they've paid their landlord. Just ask them as you're vetting them, say, oh, cool. So when's your rent currently due? And they're like, oh, the 1st. You ask that then when you ask them later and say, oh, hey, so thanks so much for applying. Here's the 3 things we need. I need a screenshot of your credit score from Credit Karma. Because that's how we help them get a free credit score, right? Second thing is I just need to see what your pay stubs say. And third thing is, can you just show me proof of payment to your landlord for the last 3 months? Now, if they told you in that showing that it was on the 1st, it was due on the 1st, and then on the 7th, the 11th, and the 18th is when they paid their last 3 months rent, I've got bad news. They're not going to be a very good tenant. Right? So that's the thing that you need to be focused on. As far as picking a bad tenant, it's listen to what they say. If they do nothing but complain and bitch about the old landlord, they're going to do nothing but complain and bitch about you. And they're going to go online and going to say stupid things. So it's really just more as you're walking through that process, or if you hire somebody to do it, ask them questions. Ask them questions. Oh, cool. So how long were you? Be conversational. Interested is interesting. Oh, cool. So how long were you in your last place? Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So what made you decide if you've been there for X amount of time, whatever, what made you decide to leave? It's really just about having that conversation. Largely speaking, if they have that good credit, if they're paying their bills on time, usually you're not going to hear from them very often. If you feel the need to do background checks, you can certainly do that. But if they lie at any point, they're out in my equation. We've had people show up and then go, oh yeah, and we have 2 dogs too. Nope, you're out, you're done. They're liars. They withhold truth. So that's the biggest red flag for me, is if you're not completely honest. I'm not asking you to tell me your life story, but I'm asking you to be honest. And if you're not going to be, and so if I find out that, oh yeah, well actually, oh yeah, I didn't, we actually, I have my other kids every other weekend. Oh, so it's not going to be 2 kids. It's going to be 4 kids every other weekend. I just want to know the truth. I want to know the truth. So if they lie about anything, I instantly disqualify them. Yeah, instantly. Kyle Dorn, thanks for the kind words, and I agree with not moving too fast. Yep, these two are perfect speed. Okay. Certainly would not do another, my man, at the same time. I promise I'm staying in my comfort zone. Good. We want to push outside the comfort zone. That's good. But what we don't want to do is get over our skis. So that's really good. But the place that I see people get crushed is when they overdo it. When they're just like, because, a big $8,000, $10,000 problem happens, and you're like, I just spent it all on these deposits. Whatever it is, those are the things that you really want to watch out for. Those are the things that you want to keep track of, for sure. Robert Fernelli, Allenstown is a board of selectmen, not a council. Okay, for a word. Yep, for a ward. Okay. But yeah, I've been wondering if it's a good idea to tip off the town or not. But it looks like I should reach out to one of the selectmen. What I would do is I would talk to, that's the value of having FX, having an attorney that's been doing this before for 30 years. I would ask him. He might tell you, never reach out to those guys. They're the biggest bunch of jerks. Or, yeah, they're really cool people. Just reach out to them and tell them what you're trying to do. And they'll be supportive of that, so long as you listen to and take what they have to say inward. That's where I think it's really important. I think it's really important that you can put yourself in a position, a significant advantage. I think you can put yourself in a significant advantage. Andres. Hey, Andres. Hey, Matt. I bought a triplex, and insurance company is saying I need commercial insurance, which is more expensive. Have you heard about that? No, I haven't. I would be going to another commercial. I would be going to another insurance broker, because residential insurance is 4 units or less. The only reason that it's not is if for some reason that it's a commercial building. But if it's a triplex, if it's all residential units, then that's just incorrect. So there could be something that's being zoned improperly. It could be something on the tax card that's reflecting improperly. So what you guys need to do is you need to shop. When you don't get the answer that you want, you shop. I had somebody come back to me. They gave me this big, huge, fat number. And I go, she's like, okay, so I just need your credit card and I can process it. I go, yeah, okay, not going to happen. She's like, what do you mean? I go, it's not going to happen. I said, that number's ridiculous. Well, it is what it is. Well, then I am getting another quote. In fact, I'm getting 3 other quotes. So I reached out to all those people on Tuesday, and I'm waiting for quotes back, because I'm not just going to. Now, if all of those quotes come back and hers is in range, well, then I don't have to do a bunch of additional information, and I'll probably just go with that quote. However, if she is 10 or 20 or 30% more than the next guy, yeah, guess what? I'm buying the other insurance. How it goes. Yep. Antonio, I hate the housing market outlook for NH. hot hat do you see? Antonio, hit me with the rest of that question. I'm happy to answer it. Sorry, typo. Yeah, you're good. I hate do you I'm gonna get back to you. I'm gonna come back down and reread your question. FX says he doesn't know anything about Allenstown. Okay, there you go. Then I would in that case I would reach out, but I would be try and talk to some other landlords first. Look up and see the other stuff that was approved. Just say, hey, I'm another developer. I'm just trying to do this on a triplex, right? It's one of the things that I teach in the course where I tell you guys, find other people that have done exactly what you're trying to do and then talk to them. So I would look up and I would see, hey, is there anybody that's tried to go from a 2 to a 3? And down at the planning board, I'm sure that they know that. And then just look that and say, hey, can I look that up? And then see who it was and then contact them. That's what I would do. Because otherwise you're just guessing. Caldorn, yes. 3 months of documented proof paid rent. Yes, sir. 65 to 70% of my applicants disappear once I ask for this. We know why. This is right, guys. No one else teaches this. Nobody. No one else teaches. They actually say, oh, call the landlord and ask them. Do you know how many landlords won't give references anymore? I don't give references anymore. The only thing that I tell them is, yes, they live with me for this period of time. Can you tell us if you'd rent to them again? Nope. Did they pay the rent on time? Not answering. Because if they don't get the apartment and they want to get litigious about it, they can sue me and I don't need to go to court over something so stupid. P.S. By the way, just won in court again, 27-0. Just saying. Coming in on 30. Coming in hot. I won this week in court. Yeah. So Kyle, exactly that point. Can that create liability? Yeah, absolutely it can. Yep, it absolutely can. There are cases where people have sued because they didn't get into it, because they didn't get into a unit. Now, whether they win or not isn't material. If they lose, they still have to fight the case. It's still thousands and thousands of dollars. And very often, the people that don't get approved, they have access to legal aid that I don't have access to, and legal aid's free. So it costs them nothing but time, and we all know that they have that. So to your point, wealth building journey, yep, it absolutely can create. Antonio says, what I think you say, what do you think about the NH housing market for the next year or two? So, as kindly as I can say it, rather largely speaking, you're all good. I appreciate you asking the question, Antonio. So I think that we're largely speaking going to be flat. I think that we're going to come off of some of these prices. I've been saying that for, I actually started saying that the end of last year. Yeah. Like third quarter of last year, I said, I think we're going to have some adjustment, or no, second quarter of last year. I said, I think we're going to go down 10%. The median home price from its peak was down like 6%. Everyone said, oh, it's all time high. Look at the chart. It's Fred St. Louis. They actually put it out there. It shows from its peak and not seasonally adjusted from its peak. It was actually down like 4 or 6%. Now, what you're going to find is a lot of houses above the median are sitting. Many of the houses median below are still flying off the market. So if a majority of transactions start to happen below the median, that's going to pull the median down. So the question is that, and I believe we were going to hit recession, but it's also, like I said, I believe that Kamala was going to win. Didn't think Trump was going to win. So I thought that Kamala was going to win. So I basically counted on, we're going to have a recession. We're going to have massive job losses, and there's going to be a bunch of new legislation that just absolutely drowns companies. That's what I believe was going to happen. So when he got elected, it changed, obviously, the what I believe the outcome was going to be, because I believe that he's pro-business, and that many of his policies are trying to aim towards that. And so I believe that for the next couple of years in New Hampshire, I think we're going to be flat to decline. I think that rents are going to be flat to decline. There's going to be upside in a number of units when people trading out in places that they live for forever and they're finally ready to leave. That's going to change. And so my profits will increase. My profits will increase this year. My goal was to make an extra $100,000 this year in rents, and I have to look at the numbers, but I know that we've got a number of units that have come on that have gone up, $500 or $600 a month because of somebody moving out. So what's really interesting is if you do that, it's $500 or $600. Let's say it's $600 times 12, it's $7,200. So that only has to happen to 13 units, 14 units. 14 units, and then basically I'm hitting $100,000. Now there's some units that have gone up $1,000. Now some have only gone up $200. But if I can be in that average $500-600, and I do that with only about less than 10% of my portfolio, I'm going to make an extra $100,000 this year. Now that's where I teach you guys that mass that I've created, that's where it's valuable. If you have a small portfolio, then the numbers go up, yes, but they don't go up nearly as quickly. So what I can do is at this point in my career, or even by the time I'm 50, I can sit there, which is 3 years from now. Even by the time I'm 50, I can sit there and go, you know what? I'm kind of tired of the game. So what I want to do is I want to sell 50 or, I want to sell 50% of my assets, pay off all the other stuff, have some cash sitting there. But now I own all of my properties outright. And so my only nut is maintenance and taxes. Now, at that point, then I'm worth a ton of money. I've got a ton of cash sitting there. And I'm willing to give up on having 53 buildings and only having 25 or 26 because now they're all paid off. So that's the option that I have. Now you can do that when you go from 10 down to 5 or 20 down to 10. You can do that too. However, very often if you make that jump, depending on where the economy is and depending on where the market is, you might not be able to survive off of that. So then you have to keep more for that cash flow, just as an option. For me, we have a massive nut because we have 4 kids, 7 and under, and 2 adults that don't work in the house. So that's where that kind of comes into play. So yeah, so I think from a market perspective, I think we're flat to down on single family, we'll call it above the median price. I think on below median price, I think those continue to go up. And I think that, rentals in Class A, most of the money that's being lost in the market is being lost in Class A. It's not being lost in B and C. Certainly not being lost in C, a little bit maybe being lost in B, but not much. But almost all of it's in A. But then that's where the doomsdayers, that's where the dipshit crash pros, that's where they get it wrong, is they don't understand where the money is actually coming out of. It's coming out of A. A is the one giving 2 free months. A is the one giving $99 move-in specials. I'm not giving $99 move-in specials. That's stupid. Why would I do that? Don't need to. My stuff rents anyway. Antonio, what do you think about triple net leases? Yeah, I have them. Yeah, do you prefer them over multifamilies? No, I prefer the properties that make the most money, not being, a jerk in saying that. Right. So truthfully, there's parts of commercial that I like, and there's parts of commercial I hate. I had a commercial unit stay vacant for a year and then I sold the building, but it stayed vacant for a year. I couldn't find quite the right tenant. Now it's really funny. It's been another year since I sold that building. That unit's still vacant. And they can't do a build to suit. They're stuck. So, hopefully they can make the numbers work, but we'll see. So for me, I like triple net leases. They're pretty awesome. Triple net, for those of you who don't know, means that they basically pay everything. They pay the taxes, they pay the water bills, they pay the sewer bills, they pay everything. Yeah. One of my contractors literally sending me an email at 10 o'clock at night. I love it. I appreciate that very much, actually. The grumpy contractor, REI. I'm sorry. Did I miss? Okay. Did the house we were talking about in the boot camp ever sell? It did. Yep. Yeah. So that other house did sell. They got a cash offer. They accepted it. A developer bought it, and he's basically going to tear down that house, and he's going to separate the lots and build on those 2 lots. So yeah, it's sold, which is fine. I mean, we shot our shot. We made an offer based on what we felt comfortable on. And the deal didn't come together, and that's okay. I don't mind. That was probably the closest we've ever been to getting on the ocean. For those of you who don't know, I've been looking for an ocean house for about a decade, but it's always kind of chasing me, or I'm always chasing it. I haven't been able to catch up yet. The place that we wanted to be, you could get on the water for, $1.3 million or $1.4 million. And at that point, I think our budget was about $1 million. And then it was, I was like, okay, I got to $1.3 million, and then it was $2 million. You're like, damn it. So that's what ended up happening. Yeah. So right now there was one property that we looked at, this is completely absurd pricing, but they just put on the market for $5 million. I looked at that house. It was under $2 million, and now it's 5. I mean, whatever. Yeah. Not for me. Not Likely not. I won't say not ever for me, but likely never for me. Chuck, question. I have a great applicant, but may have trouble with the 6 steps up to each entry. Okay. I'm a little worried about liability. What would you do? Old house, but very high up pier and beam. Oof, yeah. I mean, Chuck, that's a great question. Here's what I would tell you. I would tell you that for me, and I stole this from Corby Carter. He was great. Boot camp, a couple boot camps ago. He talks about something called the SWAN method, and the SWAN method is sleep well at night. So my concern is that I don't know if you're in a frozen area, one that gets bad weather, one that gets ice, one that gets slippery. That's a concern. That's a concern. So for me, I wouldn't want to put somebody in a position where I'm constantly having to worry that they might have a slip and fall. So in my shoes, for me, that would just be a pass, because I just don't want to be kept up at night. I can't be kept up at night thinking about that. I just can't. It would be too bothersome for me. In all honesty, it would just be too bothersome for me. It would stress me out on an ongoing basis. Just, being brutally honest. Jason Calzabetta, great game going. One not like that last one. Ah, crap. Hold on a second. Now I got to check. Hold on. I'm a hockey guy, guys. For those of you who don't know. And Jason, that's not very helpful. Honestly, you're supposed to update me with what's actually happening. Oh, 3-3. That's not horrible. Ooh, they were up 3-0. Ooh. Love the NHL. I didn't want to ruin it for you. Oh, that's okay. You're not ruining it for me. I won't go back upstairs and rewatch it. I won't. I'll watch the highlights with my son in the morning for 10 minutes, and he'll get all amped up. Chuck, you're very welcome. I'm always happy to answer your questions. As you know, we are now Florida Panthers fans because we love Brad Marchand. We're from Boston. And I watched Brad Marchand get drafted from Moncton. I think it was Moncton St. John's. Yeah, Brad Marchand. I remember when he was a little ball of hate, came up on the 4th line, and then they were like, holy crap, this kid's skilled. And then he just lit it up. He's been on fire. I want him to win an MVP. Do you know that he was a 1600 to win 100 to win 1600 on winning finals MVP? Just saying. Maybe somebody placed some money on that. Arlon, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I currently own 3 properties outright with no debt. Okay. I'm considering refinancing to pull equity and invest in another property. Should I move forward now or wait to see if multifamily prices soften? So I think, so thank you for the question. It's impossible for me to give you a hard answer on that, just because I don't know all of the inner workings of kind of your market and finances for you and your age and where you are at retirement and all that stuff. So let me give it to you the way that I look at it for me and for my age. So I'm 47. I re-levered all of my buildings a few years ago. None of them were paid off, but a number of them were, 30% loan to value, 40% loan to value. And so I refinanced a lot of those and I moved them to 70% loan to value, but I had 3 criteria. One criteria was no more than 70% loan to value, so long as I saw opportunities in the market, like not like I can go buy this deal now today, but I'm generally looking and I'm generally seeing some opportunities. Not like I'm going to go do this deal right now, but just generally speaking, I'm starting to see some opportunity. And number 3 is if my return still means that I make 20%, because that's my big, kind of boast number with the bank is my rentals make 20%. So even my bad ones make 20%. Now that's over time, obviously, and for us, a lot of the stuff that we buy, sometimes we're getting it 20% in year 1, not usually. But within 6 to 12 months, we're at over 20% because of the adjustments that we can make, right? So if I were looking at the situation, what I would do for me is I would say 70% loan to value. I want to go over that. Number one. Number two is I want to lever debt on the property that I'm most likely to sell. That's the second thing. But along with that is no more 70% loan to value, but also on the property that I would be most likely to sell and have a 20% income there. Because recognize that 70% loan to value, whoever's going to be buying that asset, they're going to be looking at that and going, I'm going to have to put 25% down or 30% down. Maybe I'm doing an owner rock. And I'll get 5% down. But I want to have debt on the asset that actually helps people understand, that actually helps people understand, hey, listen, I'm still making 20% on the property, meaning that I'm not ever going to have to write a check out of my pocket. I'm not having to do a bunch of maintenance out of my savings. That's kind of the second step. And then the third step is making sure that as you're doing work in the market, that's what I would look at is if I'm looking at that market, I'm saying, hey, I'm seeing some opportunity in this market and I need to be ready to jump when the opportunity is to jump. The other thing that I would do that's, I think, more worth the investment, I'd work with like a Jennifer Stewart or something like that to actually create opportunities and see if they're actually creating any wholesale opportunities for me. I might make a little investment in that and do that for 60 or 90 days to see, hey, is that going to get me any opportunities? And then you actually have something you can put the money into, right? Because the refi can happen pretty quick. The refi can happen in 30 days and you can close in 60 pretty easily. But I would probably look at the market, test the market a little bit, create a plan for creating other opportunities like I did. I think that puts you in a pretty, it puts you in a pretty good spot. Like I said, that's what I would do if I were in your shoes. Antonio, with 3 million cash. Okay. With 3 million cash, would you build a 5-unit condo unit that's already approved and would cost $2 million to build, which is nuts to me, and cash flow $120,000 a year and get triple or get a triple net property that's $4 or $5 million that's cash flowing, $400K a year and is guaranteed for 10 years. Both of those are options. It depends on what kind of investor you want to be. So if you want to be that, commercial guy, here's one of the things I can tell you about commercial. When the economy has a downturn, do you believe whether or not the economy is going to downturn? If the economy downturns, is the asset that you're actually buying, is it going to be maintained? Are they still going to live there? I think that's what becomes the problem. No one has that crystal ball. So I wouldn't start off with a $3 million investment on anything. I never had $3 million. I still don't have $3 million. If I had $3 million, I wasn't investing as I went along. So I can't answer that question for you. The only way that I would answer that question is if I had $3 million today, it'd be a different thing than I would do now than what I did when I had 4 units or 0 units or 10 units. That varies based on where you're at in your journey. But for me, the other thing too is that on a commercial property, you've seen those can be for sale for years. I will take residential all day long, every single day for me, because those assets move. Commercial, it usually has to be a pretty good economy, and growth in the economy. Is that what's going to happen in the next year or two? Maybe, maybe not. Don't really know. That's my thought. Kyle Dorn, what's your take on this? Single family home, 3-bedroom, need to do flooring upstairs, carpet on stairs, or LVP carpet on stairs? Nope. LVP upstairs, yes, but on the stairs, 8-pound. That's what we teach in the course. 8-pound pad and a high pile carpet. 8-pound pad and a high pile carpet. You want to reduce the amount of noise. You want people feeling that transition on their feet. So let's just say downstairs, there's traffic areas and things like that, but they take their shoes off and they go upstairs. Well, that carpet feels so good on your feet getting up to the upstairs. By the time you're up to the upstairs, your feet are clean, right? And then you have LVP and you have your nice clean LVP up there. So for me, always carpet on the stairs, reducing noise and just giving you that more luxurious feel on the way upstairs. I just don't want carpet upstairs because people bring, dogs or cats or pets or kids or their own late night snack, and the rest is history from there. Yeah. Hey Flavio, good to see you. Guys, thank you so much for letting me be a part of Zoob's school. Dion and I did that this last Sunday. It was a lot of fun. It was great to hang out with you guys and answer your questions. Really enjoyed it. But I always have fun doing that stuff. That's why I agree to do it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun just answering your questions and getting perspective. I think that's the challenging part is I try to always put myself in someone else's shoes. But I try and if you like Antonio asks a great question. I get it. Like there's that really sexy part, which says, hey, $3 million, I can go buy something for 5 million and then have all this massive cash flow. True. You can, but on the commercial side, it can also disappear and it can disappear quickly. What happens when, they shutter a bunch of Subways or fill in the blank of the company, Applebee's, or go down that path. What happens when they shutter a bunch of those locations? Guess what? Then you're stuck. Chuck, clean upstairs. How did I never think of this? Yeah, believe it or not, it works. So we actually do 8-pound pad. Normally people will put this recycled pad. That's junk. It'll get pound down fast. Then they'll put 6-pound pad in. Nope, junk. If the person's heavy enough, you can still hear the stepping. 8-pound is all cushion. It's absorbing all of the noise. A high pile carpet. It just feels good on your feet going up the stairs. And by the time you walked up those 8, 10, or 12 steps, whatever was on your feet from the first floor is now in the carpet. So yeah, you have to vacuum your carpet. But when you get upstairs, you're not dragging anything upstairs. And then upstairs is nice and clean with LVP. You're in pretty good shape. Glad you like the idea, Chuck. Yeah, it works. It's worked really well. We're at the end of 3, and it's 3-3. Oilers, Panthers. But that's all right. Now it's going to be, let's just see. I need to see this. I need to see the player standings. No, I need to, come on, show me what I need. I need to see who scored the goals. That's Edmonton, the Panthers. Kachuk has 2 and Lundell has 1. Marshy's kept off the board. That's crazy. Yep, that's what I've been using with 8-pound pad too. Perfect. The 8-pound pad makes all the difference. People very often will not use 8-pound pad, and then they're like, my stairs wore out in 2 or 3 years. Here's the crazy thing. When you're doing duplexes with party walls or even single family homes, when they're walking that thing, you'd be surprised. They'll be there like, yeah, I'm walking up the stairs and it's so loud. Or they can hear the echo through the place. So the project house, it's really funny. I still haven't been inside. But I talked to my guy today. And he said basically he's down to polying the floor downstairs. He's done all the touch-ups and things. Landscaping's being done outside. So yeah, freaking there you go. So I'm expecting that we should be wrapped up in the project house. I think maybe next week, and then we'll get pictures taken and we'll go on the market and we'll see how we do. I know that we are, we'll have to run through the numbers. I know that we're going to be over budget. But I know why we're going to be over budget. It was the $5,000 laundry room and bathroom on the first floor that I decided to do. So for those of you who don't know, the videos are on my channel. They're live walkthroughs of the property. I said that I would be able to do that entire project in less than 20 hours. I think we're barely hitting 17. I have to look at it. But I'll be 17 hours into it. That's it. And that's just phone calls, set up, meeting contractors, following up on contractors, all of that sort of stuff, checking in and buying product and doing design and basically everything start to finish that I do on a property. Which is people do what's inspected, not expected. So I meet the contractor there to make sure to walk through them what the job is and what I want done, meet the multiple contractors there. Then we pick one. And then after they say they're done, I go and I look at it before I pay them. So that's all of that work. Monkey Huevos. Have you ever used LifeProof LVP? Do you recommend a better product? I've not heard of LifeProof LVP, Monkey. So I don't know. Honestly. I've not used LifeProof LVP before. Typically what we're looking at is we're looking for something that if you can take your thumb and push it down on the corner, that doesn't snap. If you can snap that, it's going to snap under the load of a person. We also, in all honesty, and really kind of what we figured out, we like to use commercial grade LVP in residential applications. It gives you a 30-year warranty in most cases. And is that company going to be around in 30 years anyway? No. But if they're willing to stand behind something for 30 years, even 15 years, it's a lot better. I can tell you that we're going through 2 floor replacements right now that I am more than just a little bit pissed that we are that we're having to go through, because quite frankly, we shouldn't have to be making these replacements. It kind of sucks. But it was a combination of bad install and bad product. And this was product that we think we bought from a national chain. So I don't know of LifeProof, the product, LifeProof LVP, but I would tell you what we look at from a spec perspective, and we're more looking for that commercial product. Yeah, that other product was just garbage. It just folds under the weight of people. Any last questions, last request? Come on and hit me. I'm ready to take your last few questions over the next 14 minutes. Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Yeah. Should be like 17 hours, I think, all in. And then we'll just figure out how much I made in 17 hours. Hard saying, not knowing. But we got to see. We got to see how much money I can make in those 17 hours. Yeah. Yep. So it was a 3-1 that I bought from a wholesaler. And we turned it into a 3-2. It had a bunch of big bad trees in the backyard that that wasn't an expense that we were expecting to get hit for that much. We thought we could do a trim up. We ended up needing to do massive tree work. But again, we accounted for a few $1,000. I think we went a little over there, so we had to show you how to run a budget. We just skimp and save on a couple of other areas, but we were able to do the kitchen and flooring in the kitchen. And instead of replacing all the flooring, we looked at doing LVP throughout the entire house, and it was like that was no longer an option, became cost prohibitive. We were able to end up refinishing the floor. We wanted to get floors that matched. And so that being a 100-year-old house, I had to find salvage wood. But I did found it that was part of the looking. That was part of the time that I spent, but I found it on Craigslist. And I had to go drive and pick it up, but it was on my way. And so we had the trailer, we loaded it up, and I got the wood for $75. And so we sanded it and then polyed it, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it looks beautiful. Chuck says LifeProof isn't bad as long as the floor is level and clean. Chuck, that's great. Yeah, it's great input. Yeah, I think that's the challenge is that, in the Northeast, we have a lot of 120, 140-year-old homes. So our floors are very rarely level. So one of the things that we have to be really cognizant of is when we actually go to use LVP, that it has to be pretty substantial. It can't be the inexpensive stuff. Because our floors are never going to be perfect, and they're going to be out over a 15 or 20 foot span. Robert Fairley, thanks. Trying to reach out to someone who got an exemption to go from 2 to 3, who got approved but got denied, going back to a 2. Also looking for big investors in that area who know. That's exactly right. Man, that's a perfect person to know. Excuse me. That's the perfect person to know. Anybody that got denied for it, that's big. That's big. That's huge. Yeah. You got to understand what they went through, why they lost. And are they in the same ward as you? Like, that's the other piece that you can look at too. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Love that. Back to the LVP thing. When you're looking for a brand, I don't look for brands very often. Very often I'm just looking for the spec. So it's kind of the same thing with Windows. Very rarely am I going after a brand. What I'm looking for is the spec. Yeah, Chuck, slab for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for us, we don't even have slab. We don't have slabs really anywhere here. We almost always have basements, and there's almost always some sort of a deflection in the floor. And there's also some sort of curvature or whatever. Yeah. It's interesting that they allowed to a 3, but but then why they got denied when going back. Right. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is, like, did they try and pull some shenanigans? Like, that's what some of these people do. Like, some people get stupid and they're just like, oh, they don't need to know that. It's like, dude, that's going to hurt you. You're going to get a reputation, and that's not going to go well for you, bro. Not going to go well for you. Um, but yeah, so I'm excited to share that with you. So you'll see some video this week. The jail, holy cow, we are flying at the jail now, guys. We are flying. For those of you who don't know, I have a police station slash jail that I bought, converting it to housing and to indoor kids playground. What's really exciting about that is that we were kind of stuck for like 6 months between sprinklers and fire systems and alarm systems and stamp drawings and fire engineers, and holy cow, it was a lot, right? But we did all that stuff, and it just took us 6 months because I'd never done it before. And so I asked a bunch of questions and very often got wrong answers. And that's the problem when you're asking the people that are in charge and they give you those wrong ones. Yeah, Chuck in Texas. Yeah, what's the basement? Yeah, exactly. You guys only have slabs there. So for you guys, it's awesome because you can just put it right on grade, which for us sucks. It's hard. But yeah, so it took 6 months to get that done. But so we finished. Basically, those problems started like November of last year. So it was November, December, January, February, March. We were done the sprinklers, and then we had to do alarm, which was April. April. And then they had to come back and finish electrical and what was the other thing they had to finish? Electrical and Windows. Electrical and Windows, got all that stuff wrapped up and done. And now we're actually finally spraying insulation. We're spraying insulation in the roof line. All the sprinkler systems done, all the electrical is done, all of that, everything is done. So we're really super pumped. Mark Hambone, any idea on a course update? Got first rental cleaning up now, but student season is coming fast. Yeah, it's a lot different than regular marketing section. I'm not trying to. Oh no, yeah, you're good. Yes. So what I typically do when I'm not doing a boot camp is I spend that time actually building out other stuff. So we've got the videos we have to get posted from the last 2 boot camps. We've got those going. By the way, I now have those on my actual machine, and so I can do a little bit of work. Patience, because I suck at it, and so I have to figure that out and get that up. But I actually have the video that I did on student housing, where I can basically just post that in there, and it gives people that haven't done a boot camp an example of what the boot camp looks like. So that should help you. And it's because it's actually like an hour. I think it's a couple hours long, but we'll keep it to the hour where I taught on that specifically. Yeah, Mark, you're exactly right. I owe it to you guys to get that thing wrapped up and done. We were working on pretty thin margin with all these projects going on. And so it's going to be really interesting. And one of the things I was talking about with Ashley, Mrs. Lumberjack, one of the things I was talking about with her was probably by like the end of July, maybe August, jail done, a 5-unit done, this project house done. And that's all 3 projects that I've had for the jail's been a year and a half. The 5 units been a little over a year. And the project house was, I don't know, will be 6 months or something like that. So yeah, want to do the boot camp, but I'm a truck driver with a rotating schedule. Totally get it. Yeah, totally understand, Mark. So what we typically do is on the boot camps, we do typically it's like 8:00 on a Saturday, and it goes to 10:00 or 11:00 on a Saturday, but it all gets recorded so you can see it. But yeah, I'm not sure what to do for folks where it's a rotating schedule, just because it's tough to do that for every student, right? Kyle Dorn, thanks for your time, Matt. You're a rock star. Love the community you built for us all. Congrats to everyone here for doing the work and eager to learn. Kyle, I appreciate you saying that. The community's you guys. Like, I show up and answer your questions. I'm grateful, that I have the opportunity to be a part of your guys' investment journey. I wish I had somebody that was part of my investment journey going through, but YouTube wasn't a thing then. And so I'm grateful to just be a part of what you guys are doing. Hopefully the lessons that I've learned, you guys don't have to learn. But yeah, it gives me something to feel like I can give back. And so I'm grateful for that. I enjoy very much the time that I get to spend with you guys. So, yeah. So, that being said, guys, have a fantastic rest of your week. It was a great time. And Big Hill hit me with a question. Maintenance on fire sprinklers is very important. A friend has had his warehouse flood 2 times in a year because the landlord didn't do maintenance. Yeah. So what we actually sign on for is we actually sign maintenance contracts. I'm very, very, those are very important to me. So we have a maintenance contract. We have an inspection. We do an inspection every single year. And then on top of that, we have monitoring as well. So it's funny that you mentioned that, Big Hill, because I said to the guy on one of the buildings that we have a system, and he goes, "So what do you want to do?" Hold on one second. Uh, okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. I just have to answer back to this person because, again, they're doing me a favor. Awesome. Thank you so, so much. Um, so yeah, so what I'll tell you is that, yeah, maintenance is very important. It's also understanding design. And so when we walked through design, we actually made sure that all of the type of design that we did and all the insulation work that we did, we made sure that we created what very often, and we've seen this in one particular building, they've had the sprinkler systems explode 3 times in the last 5 years. They actually put their envelope, they put their insulation here, and they put their water piping above that. Just so dumb. And then they wonder why it kept on popping. So it kept on popping. So what we actually did was we created the envelope at the top of the roof, and then everything sits below that. So we actually, I'm really happy with the design. I hope it works. I hope it's right. We've asked a lot of people. We got a lot of input. What's really cool is I talked to these guys that did my system. One of them has been in the business 20 years. The other one's been in for 25. So, there was a lot of wealth of knowledge there. And that's one of the things I sat down and felt comfortable with. And I said, okay, I just want to spend an hour with you and ask you a million questions. And they're like, yeah, totally fine. I mean, and what were they rewarded with? One of them was rewarded with a contract for $25,000. And the other one was rewarded with a contract for $38,000. So it worked out pretty well for them. $63,000 between the two of them was what I spent on that stuff, just on sprinkler. But the good news is it was 35 or $36,000 less than what I budgeted for. Dominic Jones, what to do with loud stairs? Don't want full carpet. Was thinking carpeting the center. No, so Dominic, that's a great question. It just doesn't look right, and you typically end up with edge issues. Typically, your best bet is to carpet tack strip all the way to the edge, and then if it's balusters, make sure it's wrapped around. The other thing that you want to do, which makes it look really sexy, and yes, I just said sexy about carpet, you do something called a New York install. So if the front of your stair is this, most do what's something called a waterfall because it's an easier install. They bring the carpet over here and then they pull it over the edge. They drop it right down and then they tack hit here. So it just comes around the edge and then comes straight down. That's called a waterfall. You don't want that. What you want is, and it's more expensive, what you want is you want them to come around the edge, tuck it under the lip and nail it here. That's called a New York install. And then come flat down and then tack there too. That will give you a much better result. Your carpet will last much longer. It's less likely to stretch, and it will actually look really beautiful finished. You'll see a New York install. I will make sure to post it for you guys so you guys can see it, because you will see a New York install on the next project that we're going to do. You will see a New York, actually on this house project that we're about to finish up. You will see it, 8-pound pad, high pile carpet, and you will see a New York install, and you will see how beautiful it looks and how when you walk in the door and you see that, you're just like, wow, that's a beautiful staircase, even though it's carpet. So guys, have an absolutely fantastic week. It was a pleasure spending time with you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks again, everybody. And make sure Zub and Dion have a great trip away, and I'm going to try and do a live with Dion tomorrow. I just got to connect with him and find out when we can possibly do it. Bye, guys. Have a great